So specifically today we're talking about 2 cruising adventures. We know a lot of you in the room have done land tours of New Zealand or Australia, but Pat and I both separately, January last year, what time did you start?
January.
January.
And Dirk.
And Dirk, yes. We both took cruises on different companies going in the opposite directions of each other to New Zealand and Australia.
Dirk and I were on the Holland America oops, I thought I fixed that. Anyway, Stadolnick? Okay, well, one of those boats. And anyway, and you were on?
I was on the Norwegian Spirit with Norwegian Cruise Lines.
So we flew somewhere. We flew to Australia first, and you obviously went to New Zealand first.
Right.
This is a view of our boat and the places we went from Sydney to Melbourne. We didn't get to Tasmania because of the weather, and then 3 places in the South Island and 3 spots in the North Island until we got to Auckland.
Right. So the Norwegian Spirit is about 2,000 people, so it's one of their smaller boats. It starts in Auckland and then bounces down the East Coast. The reason why you don't tour on the West Coast is it's much rougher, it's much stormier on that side. So they do all the tours on this side. And then there's supposed to be a day where you get to see the beautiful sounds before you cross to go to Melbourne, Burnie, Eden, and then Sydney. We did not get to see the beautiful sounds, but I will talk about that when we get there.
So Sydney, Australia is where we started, and we were staying in a hotel near one of the bays, inlets, and we walked and found this beautiful Queen Victoria called block. They called it a block, but it was kind of a big, huge mall. It was a gorgeous area. And then later, after we had been there overnight, then we went to the Sydney gorgeous sea life aquarium. And then one of the spots, of course, everybody wants to see the Sydney Opera, so I had to put that there too. That's what we saw as we were leaving the harbor to go on the rest of the cruise.
So the tour that I did went the opposite direction. So I'll be talking about my trip in backwards because we're just going to do the sites at the same time. But I do want to just mention, so when I booked with NCL, they often want you, they gave us a 2-for-1 deal on the airfare, which is a great thing to take advantage of sometimes. I just recommend that if you ever do that with a cruise company, make sure you book an extra day before your departure, because they cut it as close as possible. And especially flying in January, we were not going to risk that. So one of those cruising trips, to tell you. Also, it is the longest flight of your life. Yeah. So definitely try to bring something comfortable to wear, get your compression socks, plan to get up regularly, get an aisle seat if you can. The flight alone is an adventure.
Right.
But 13 hours, I think. That's not count. That's from LA.
Longer.
It's from LA. I did to LA, and then it was 13
here.
hours from there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to walk over here.
Okay.
So while I was in Sydney, they were getting all excited about the Chinese New Year. So they had all these really cool decorations everywhere. They had all these fun tents set up. This is a view from my hotel room. We went out and really enjoyed the Greek part of town, and I was so excited to get a vegetarian moussaka. I never had one before. I have a picture of the beer here. Australia has a law that beer cannot be over a certain percentage of alcohol. So every beer you will buy there has either been brewed specifically to be relatively low alcohol, or it's been watered down. If you're going for the beer, go to New Zealand, not Australia. Okay, and the Aussie sense of humor, these are kangaroo scrotums for sale as keychains. It was the worst thing I saw on the whole trip, so I had to subject you to it too.
Next, should I go next?
Yes.
Okay. Your Blue Mountains.
Oh, yes. Let me get to my... All right, so yes, we did it while we were at Sydney. We we had a day before we went home too. So we booked a tour out to the Blue Mountains, which is to see the Seven Sisters Formation, which is very much like going to visit the Grand Canyon. It's this huge, beautiful valley. And during the school vacation, they have dinosaurs like this that they plant all around the valley. So for kids, it's like going to visit Jurassic Park. And they have the steepest railway that a human can be on. It's like a 45-degree angle, and you get to choose how you sit in the car. It's an old mine train because they did a lot of mining there, and that's why they have all these trails that the kids can go along. And they also have a tram that crosses the valley with a glass floor, so that was fun.
Whoa.
It's a 52-degree incline for the scenic railway.
Wow.
What are your choices? You get to sit, it's just laid back, original, and cliffhanger.
Yes. So basically, you can adjust the seat as to whether you're looking down the mountain like this, or like this.
Well, we missed that. That sounds great.
It was fun. And this is my sister, Kate. I went on this trip with my sister, Kate. So I will be going back because Joe's never been.
And here's another version of the Blue Mountains. So once our trip was done, we went back to Sydney. And then we took a trip up the Blue Mountains with the rails. The rails in Australia, at least in Sydney and Melbourne, are great. And so it turned out where we were staying, we could just walk down to the first place you can get to see the Three Sisters and get this incredible view of Grand Canyon, Australia, or whatever you want to call it. Also, we spent time in the town, and these golden crested cockatiels were everywhere.
Sulfur crested.
Pardon?
Sulfur
Sulfur crested, thank you.
Yes.
I mean, they're around. It's like, we think of them, oh, wow. And then there they are. At one point, we were traveling, and there were trees full of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, and then there was a lot of trails through the mountains, as you were mentioning, and so we got to walk a lot of the trails and see them from a very, very close area.
They do have accessible areas as well. It's not all walking on trails, but it's for those who want to. It is really nice to walk.
Okay, so I'll let you do Eden first, and then I'll do Eden.
Yeah, so Eden, Australia is known for the Twofold Bay, which is a site where you can do whale watching during the correct season. We were not there for the right season. We did take a catamaran cruise, though, and we had some dolphins who played off the front of the catamaran the whole time, so we really enjoyed that. And I was just amused, as we're walking through the downtown area, there was this horse just hanging out between two of the buildings. And you wanted to talk about some things that you had heard about there.
Well, so when we were down in southern Australia, we met people, as you do at meals and such, and they don't forget to go to Eden, Australia when you go north. So and they told me a little bit about Eden, Australia. So the bay that Rebecca was just talking about was, there were orcas and whales all around, and the orcas actually worked with the indigenous people, and even later in the 1800s with some of the white people, to herd a whale or another whale or a dolphin into the bay so that the whalers could catch them. And they had this thing going on. It was amazing. And one of the older whales, and named Tom, when he died, they kept his carcass and built a museum around him, and I don't know. So, but really interesting. I'd never heard of that kind of cooperation between swimming mammals and people.
Yeah.
And this is where the museum was, with the beautiful view, and then some other beautiful places to visit while we
And this is
around.
my shirt from Eden with the humpback on it.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Melbourne, Australia. We both went there. But when Dirk and I went the first time on the cruise, when you go on a cruise, then you get, there's a boat, that's a stop, and then where would you like to go? You can just walk around where you are, or there's tours. So, and it was a big city. We didn't know it too well, so we took a tour. Well, the tour took us to a mountain very far away from Melbourne and said, "Look at the view." So it wasn't really the kind of thing, but it was. We'd been on the boat for a couple of days, so it was nice to get out. But later on, after we finished the cruise, and we went back to Melbourne, and really enjoyed it. It's a beautiful city, and we did the tower thing, the way up there, and also Dirk had been on Facebook with a friend for years that he had never met. And want to say a little bit about?
Well, it wasn't Facebook.
Oh, sorry.
But
There you go.
our son has exotropia, which is, strabismus-like. And Tim is an optometrist, so I expressed to him how disappointed I was with the service at Mass Eye and Ear. He says, well, you just do the simple exercise. And that fixed our son's exotropia in 3 weeks. So he's been a friend.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I'd met Tim in person.
Yeah, so we met them in Melbourne, and we got together and walked around the parks and with his kids and had a great time.
Nice.
So, anyway.
Yeah, so my trip to Melbourne, we did not spend a lot of time in the city. Honestly, I was not hugely impressed. It looked like Florida to me, and I'm not a fan of Florida. So we had booked a trip out into see the Fern Gully Park, which has their closest equivalent to our redwoods. They have these super, super, super tall trees. Again, there's my sister Kate. We're walking through just to give you a little perspective on the trees, and we got to hear kookaburras. I was so excited. And did we skip Eden, or are we going back?
Oh,
to
yeah.
that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before.
Oh, you're Eden.
No,
No, we
sorry,
did-
not Eden's. Bernie is what I was.
Oh, it was a different order. I thought I had the order wrong. Anyway.
Oh, there we go. Then our next stop, which you didn't get to go to, was Burnie, Australia, which is on Tasmania. And I adored Tasmania. So as much as I didn't like Melbourne, Tasmania was awesome. It very much feels like Vermont, but it's their breadbasket. It's where they do all of their most of the growing of food for the country. And the big things to do there are to go visit glowworms, which I did not have a good picture of because I don't have a good camera. But I did visit, it's a caving adventure, and it's not good if you can't get up and down stairs. So my sister did a different excursion that day. But I really did enjoy the caves, and seeing glowworms was fun. It was nice to check it off my list. But the animal park was so much fun. They had everything, and they had an area where you could actually go in and hang out with the kangaroos. So that's me melding with my friend. And some of the kookaburras, because I couldn't get a picture of them in the trees, Tasmanian devils, koala. I felt like I saw almost all the good guys there.
Well, we didn't get to go to Burnie because of the weather. It was too rough, and so we just went all the way over to the South Island.
Yeah,
And then
I had
Rebecca
a little
had-
bit more adventure. I did get to go across, but so if you remember the map, my trip did New Zealand first and then popped over to Australia.
I can go over there.
And we're supposed to, at the end before we cross the Tasman Sea, we were supposed to see 3 sounds, big, beautiful areas. And that didn't happen. The seas were so rough. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Okay, I was
The
going to go
seas were
show
so
them
rough
that,
that
but-
they decided to skip the sounds completely because it was going to take us the 2 full days to get across. And at one point, so this was just as the waves were starting to pick up. This was our view most of the trip. We were on a 9th floor balcony, and the waves were crashing over our balcony. We had 25-meter seas. There was Dramamine being handed out like candy. Every stairwell you went, every staircase, there were bags of upchuck bags everywhere. Everywhere. I slept that entire passage. One thing I haven't mentioned, I had active COVID this entire trip. And so I did all that with a full mask on 24/7. Because we had a balcony room, I was able to protect everyone else on the ship by wearing a mask 24/7 and to only take it off while I was out on the balcony. I ate all of my meals outside of the ship. So that was another adventure. But yeah, I don't know that I'm going to cross the Tasman Sea again.
I can see. Oh, that was awful. Well, then after that, the next stop is, or view is, the Milford and Doubtful and Dusky Sounds. And again, the weather wasn't great, and so we couldn't go into the Milford or the Doubtful Sound. But fortunately, we did get into the third sound. And it was raining. It was foggy, but it was still beautiful. There was rain. There's waterfalls coming off of all the mountains, and anyway, it was lovely to see. It would have been nice in the sunshine, but at least we saw that much.
Yeah. You don't get a lot of sunshine on that side of the island, is what I understand. Yep.
Is that further south than where you were in Australia?
No,
Yes.
further
Slight,
south?
well,
Then Australia, yeah.
yes, it's slightly further south.
Yeah, but not then.
Yep.
And then the first stop in the South Island, it was Port Chambers Bay and Dunedin. So the boat stops at Port Chalmers. Anyway, I had booked a tour to go on the bay to see the wildlife, for us to see the wildlife, the ducks, and there's little blue penguins. That little spot there might be one. I don't know. It's hard to see them.
I have one of them over here. If
Oh, there you go. Thank you. And so it was a lovely trip out to the bay, and the part that everybody wanted to see was an albatross. The albatrosses fly from this peak up here. You can't. It's a little blurry, but there's birds everywhere. But once in a while, an albatross will take off, and we could see the little white, babies or birds that are just like and you just go, fly, somebody fly. And one did finally. I didn't get a picture of it, of course, but it was amazing. So that was wonderful. And then it also stopped at some rocks. And can anybody see the seal? See the seal?
In the rocks.
That's a seal, not a rock. The fun of traveling and taking pictures. And then we went into Dunedin for a while, which was quite lovely.
Yeah. While we were there, it was pouring rain. You can see the lovely sheen. We had planned to go tour this Chinese gardens, but it was just too rainy. So instead, we went into their Settlers Museum. And I was just amazed at, how much this dude looks like my great-grandfather. It felt like home. I have Scottish heritage too. But one of the things that they have in the museum is this really, really large boulder, Te Takara o Kawaka. It's believed to hold the Maori, the life force of the museum. And so visitors are encouraged to get their hands wet and to rub the boulder to help it maintain its vital energy and to allow it to flow through the building. That was cool.
Yeah. Timaru, New Zealand was a stop at a small town. And matter of fact, when I told people before we traveled where we were going, they said, Timaru, New Zealand? What? And it was small. It was Sunday. The stores were closed at that point. We ended up taking a tour inland to Point Pleasant because of an antique antique railway and train museum. So we got to ride a couple miles on this antique train and go to the museum and talk to the people. And also there was, of course, an open market outside. And look at that. This one man made his own puzzles. And it was fascinating, fun to talk to him. We also were out in the country and we saw these big, huge, tall hedges everywhere. And we couldn't, that were blocking different properties. Or fields, and it turns out it gets so windy there. They grow these big tall hedges to protect the fields. And there was a botanical garden there as well. Dirk's smelling the roses.
There are lots of botanical gardens to visit at every stop.
Yes.
And they're free. Some of them are free.
Yep. Littleton and Christchurch was next. And Littleton, again, is the bay. Christchurch is the big city. There's a gondola there, and so it's very, very high. And we went up the gondola, looking at all the views on the way. And this is at the top. and looking, I don't know, there's pictures. Anyway, it was beautiful. And then when we finally went back, then we went in, got a bus into Dunedin, sorry, I'm talking about Littleton and Christchurch, into Christchurch, which was a treat to visit because it also, although it's got a lot of big building, it's also got a lot of just garden areas that were lovely to walk around. And the other thing I was impressed with was that the New Zealand women won their right to vote in 1893, and there was acknowledgement of that there. So we ate lunch there with a lovely couple. Anyway, it's fun.
So Littleton is very famous because it's the stepping off point for most excursions to go to Antarctica. And in the middle of town, they have this bronze statue of a sled dog, and this is his little plaque acknowledging that was part of it. We didn't do a lot that day. It was just one of our down days to catch up on rest. But I was just amused at how everywhere you went in town, there were just beautiful sculptures and interesting, cultural things to see, even if you didn't make a plan. We did go to a botanical park, and this was, it had been a pool, basically, that was now like a greenhouse. But there's this little notice on the front that basically says, "This is not a safe structure in an earthquake," which made me laugh. So we really enjoyed it. We thought it was beautiful there. If you do a cruise there, one of the options you have is to go see where a lot of the Lord of the Rings movies were filmed is near there, so you can take tours to go out and see that. So yeah, I think that's about all I had for that.
Wellington, New Zealand was the next stop for us, and it's a beautiful place, and we enjoyed the flowering trees. We went to the museum, which, I have to always remember the right words.
I have it if you want.
Yeah, sorry. The Tapa Museum, which some people spent the whole day there. It's so fascinating. But we wanted to go to the Zealandia refuge for the mammal, for the birds and all the wildlife that were being eradicated by the mammal predators that were not native to New Zealand. So this is a 500 acre park, totally enclosed, with traps and things, boxes to catch any of the predators, mice, etc., and keep them out of that area. So that there's a bird that doesn't fly, you say it better than Takaki bird, and there's other animals that just don't have any defenses, and this is protecting them and letting them. That they were thought to be extinct until a few were found, and now they're coming back to life. Yep. And it was just this gorgeous place to walk and look for animals, and there's a gorge, there's a huge lake. We walked across that. Anyway, fabulous area. This is a view from the museum down into the city. And then we walked up to the botanical garden to have lunch at a little restaurant, and as we were walking back, we might have taken a different turn than normal when we ended up walking through a graveyard down the hill. And then we thought this was the strangest statue we'd ever seen. He's bare bummed. I mean, I was like, what? There you go. So the little humor there.
What did the statue of?
Huh?
What did the statue
Who is he?
Harry Holland. It's a man, just Harry Holland. He died, and I guess
That's in the graveyard?
Yeah.
That statue?
Yeah. It's quite lovely, great.
Yeah.
So one of the things that struck me, back to that last slide, as I understand it, there were no mammals on New Zealand
Right.
until the first humans showed up,
Right.
which was only 600-700 years ago.
Until the first white people showed up, not humans.
No, that's right.
I was going to say that it was.
Yeah.
It was like in the early 1800s.
Yep.
It's pretty
Right, right.
That-
The rats from the ships, things like that. That's how they
Came
got
in.
on the
They
island.
brought some things to, like they raise the deer.
Yeah,
They're not a big predator, but they raise
No.
meat.
Yeah,
right.
or pigs, anything.
One of the nice things about doing tours in New Zealand is that they own how much they have destroyed. Like that the culture has been taken over. They're very respectful to the Maori people. They acknowledge them.
It's a legal second language of the country.
Yes, yes. So it feels pretty different than how we treat the Native Americans. So I also, Wellington, we walked around the city. It's a crazy little tram that takes you all the way up the mountain. We did a few of those on this trip. But this is coming down the botanical gardens. It was just very pretty. Lots of things to see, lots of things well labeled. The museum was awesome. This was a whole display of different catching techniques. Anywhere you go in New England, you see the lobster trap. So that just made me feel like we're on the ocean. This was all different types of seaweed. I thought it was just cool how it was random. They had a lot of different types of things in that museum, but it was definitely worth a visit. Museums there are free. So if you do a cruise and they want to get you to pay $30 to go to a museum, you're really just paying for the bus. So if you can walk to the museums, you don't have to pay. But my way of supporting the museums was to buy something at every museum. So that's where I bought my book on Maori wisdom. I got a little blue penguin. Everywhere you go, you'll see this type of shell that they sell. It's special to New Zealand. I'm wearing a small kiwi that my dad got me. This kiwi's probably 50 years old at this point, but they still sell almost this exact same pin. So tourism there has not changed much in 50 years. Okay.
I forgot to mention that was Wellington is on the North Island. So now we've gone past the South Island. We're in the North Island.
Yep.
And the next stop we both had was Napier, New Zealand. Napier was decimated in about 1930 from a huge earthquake. It tore through the house. Anything that wasn't damaged by the earthquake was damaged by fire. So it took them 2 years to even start rebuilding, and it was during the Art Deco era. So it's like probably the most Art Deco town you'd see anywhere. And of course, there's Art Deco tours to show you some of the finer things, Art Deco parts of the town. Some are on the ceiling, some are on the outside, some are inside. It's also beautiful. It's got a beautiful, across the street, there's a huge, long beach with some beautiful artifacts there and other parks. It's a gorgeous place. And there's also a store that we went to where you could dress up in clothes from the other era. Anyway, it's cool.
So these are my pictures. This was my first real excursion day on my cruise because I was coming south.
That's right.
And as I said, I literally started testing positive for COVID the day before the trip started. So I was not doing anything with other people at this point. So I walked around the city. There is a transit little bus that you can hop on and hop off for free in that city. So it's very easy to get around. You don't need to book anything to go see all the beautiful buildings. And so I did a little bit in the town. I also visited, they have a nice little aquarium there, and I actually got to see the blue penguins. They had 4 or 5 of them there. I don't take great pictures, so I just took that so you could see them. But yeah, there's me and fish and my mask that I lived in the entire trip. They have a nice little historical museum there too. So they had great examples of the Maori art. They had an example of, I cannot remember what he's called, but he's one of the symbols of New Zealand. I have him on my necklace too. Basically, this is a representation of the ancestors. So almost every village had one of these, and it was passed from leader to leader to leader through the generations because it tied you to your ancestors, and they felt that was very important.
We both also went to Tauranga, I think that's the right name, New Zealand, and we both also climbed this mountain, which has been it was habited by the indigenous people that had lived there for a long time. And then it's been through a number of iterations, but it's got paths all the way up to the top and then down again. And that day was the first day of school after the holiday break, because they have a long break between Christmas and the middle of January. And all the school kids, I would say from 8 on up, were climbing the mountain in this big, huge group. So once in a while, we went, oh no, how are we going to get around them? Well, they would stop once in a while, and their teachers would give them a lecture. I would say 75% were Maori children, and the teachers were. So it was, and they were really friendly. And as they were running down the mountain, we were doing high fives, and it was really fun. So here's some views at the top, and some of the people. Some of the students. When we got down to the bottom, they were along the other side of the, on the shore, and they were learning with their oars, they were learning kind of an oar dance. And that there were 3 groups, they had split into 3 groups. So we watched one of the groups, and they're like doing kind of a dance, where you're down and up, and they were all together. And they were all practicing, learning how to do this Maori oar dance thing, which was fun to watch. And what else? There's our boat and another part of the island. It's a beautiful place too.
So notice that picture. Okay, now switch. Same picture. No. So the cruise ship parks, this is a map of that area. The cruise ship parks over here, and then you have this lovely, nice walkway. And for me, it was just interesting to see this tsunami evacuation zone map that basically said, most of that island, most of that part of town is going to get washed away. If there's a tsunami, you better get up on the hill. I'm a safety girl. I always like to know what local safety is. So that day, my sister is a database administrator for Home Depot, and she knows people all over the world, and she has a friend who lives in Taronga. So we just did a quick walk up the hill. That's a picture we took while we were up the hill. We didn't spend a lot of time there. I wandered the town and did some shopping while she went and met her friend for lunch. And I do recommend getting off the beaten path if you want to buy souvenirs for people, because there are less expensive stores if you get off the beaten path. I got shirts for all of my guys from New Zealand, at one of those stores. It's just, don't get sucked in by where the cruise ships tell you to go. That's my shirt point. Okay.
Auckland. So Auckland was where we were dropped off. We stayed in a hotel for a couple of days and enjoyed the area. I enjoyed seeing a couple of things. We paid for a hop-on, hop-off bus. It was a 2-day thing. And the first day we got there, it was before we got the tour thing, but we went up to the Towel Tower, another one of those high towers, and enjoyed the views. And there was a statement, something to the effect of, Auckland is now popular and thriving because we built this tower and everybody wants to see it. It was interesting. Anyway, so we got on the hop-off bus. I think the second stop was the Auckland Zoo, and we stayed there the rest of the day. So we didn't hop off there again. But it was a fabulous zoo. There was a lot of land for all the animals. When I saw the giraffes running around this huge acreage, I was just so impressed. And we did see a Tasmanian devil too, yes. And lions up close and such. It was lovely. And then the next day, we did the hop on a hop bus, second day, and we went to the Auckland Museum and never left that because it was so fabulous. There's floors and floors of Maori artifacts and from some of the Southeast Islands too. And we also had paid for a Maori dance performance as well, which was done in Maori style. And I put this in the museum. There's a lot of talk. There's, half of a room about tattoos because they were very important as a part of their culture. And women had tattoos, and it was not unusual. This woman's was something about the painting being stolen or being used indiscriminately, and the museum was able to get it back and honor her.
Nice. Yeah, so for our cruise, Auckland was the starting point. So we actually came in a day early and did an excursion, which I'll show you next. But for our, this is a view from our hotel. There's the cruise ship at the port. One of the things that we did was, my sister loves whale watches, so we hopped on a whale watch. We saw no whales on the whale watch. We saw one blue penguin from a distance, so it was like you couldn't see it. But what we did see was we found these giant barrels that were almost as big as these tables. There were 3 or 4 of them that had become unmoored and were just floating around the bay. And I was very pleased with the whale watching tour because they stopped and we hauled those in and took them out. So they are very good about trying to maintain their environment, and be good. One of the things that you can see, you mentioned gannets before. Gannets are fairly large seabirds, and they have a very unique way of fishing where they go about 3 stories high and then they go straight down into the water to catch their prey. Here's one bird just entering the water, but they kick up a huge splash when they hit. And when you've got a flock this big, it's like being in the middle of a fireworks display because they're just like, So that was a lot of fun. It made the tour worth it, that and hauling out the things. And on the way back in, we saw a sign that said, a pint and a pie. $17. And I'm like, oh, a pint and a pie. Okay, we'll do that for dinner. We did not understand the size of these pies. Holy moly. These are meat pies, like chicken pot pie type things. And they came with a side dish. And I'm like, a pint and a pie? No, we should have split one, but we kind of assumed when it came with a pint that you could finish the pie. Not us. Okay. All right, our excursion, those of you who are into Lord of the Rings, I'm going to keep mentioning it. Wellington, you can go and tour the Weta Studios where they did all the animations and things for Lord of the Rings. But from Auckland, you can take a bus tour. It takes you like an hour and a half out of the city, and you can go to where they filmed all the scenes from the Shire. So this was basically somebody's sheep farm. And when they filmed the first set of movies, the Lord of the Ring movies, they only used like set dressing, right? They didn't actually create anything. They just had facades everywhere. They filmed the movie, they left, and then people started showing up at the sheep farm and taking pictures of themselves all over the sheep farm, even though the facades weren't there anymore. It was because Lord of the Ring fans are a thing. And so when they decided to do the Hobbit movies afterwards, they came back and said, hey, we'd like to use your land again. And they said, yes, you can on one condition. You're going to build actual structures and you're going to let us keep them, and we're going to make it a theme park kind of thing. So you can actually go and tour the Shire, and it is amazing. I have probably 200 pictures. I will not show you right now. This is the view, just looking down. This is the Green Dragon pub and the center of the Shire. So this is up where all the hobbit holes are. And this is the Bag End hobbit hole. That's where Frodo and Bilbo lived. What they have done is they have actually created 2 full hobbit holes that you can tour. And so I got in one and my sister got the other. So we got pictures of the insides of both of them. But these are pictures from the inside. And they actually hired the original artists who did all the work on the movies to create the interiors for these hobbit holes. So it really is a very fun, immersive experience. And they brew their own beer at the Hobbit, at the Green Dragon. Here is the Green Dragon of the Green Dragon. This is inside the pub. And that was the best beer we had on the island, I swear. So it's definitely worth booking a tour. I went with Cheeky Kiwi Travel, is who I booked the tour with, and it was so much fun. It was really good.
Oh, that's great. And the last thing we did in Auckland at the end of our trip was to rent a car and go to Rotorua and Taupo, but actually we stopped just before Rotorua to go to the
Glowworms.
The glowworm, another glowworm cave. Ours was really fun because you go, there's a whole talk and you see the worms before they glow, and there's a light showing them. And then go down some steps and get in a big boat, and you're boating along this little canal in the dark, looking up, and it's glowing. It's like stars out there. So anyways, but then we went to Rotorua because of down in this area, it's very thermal. There are a lot of thermal vents and thermal lakes, and it was just amazing. The first place was called Thermal Wonderland, and that's the colors didn't come out, but we had like yellow and orange and dark greens and all sorts of amazing, and everything was hot. And there's also this geyser that goes off every day at like 10:15, and there's stories about how it got to be in this particular shape. I won't go into that. And then we went to Tapa, which is a little further, I guess, southeast, and spent a night in that area. And there's beautiful waterfalls to be seen there and a number of other things, but we had heard about craters of the moon. Couldn't imagine what that was like. And here it is. It's this huge area. I can't imagine how big it was. And there's steam vents coming out of the ground all over the place. There's dirt. And so the only way you can walk on it is on the wooden platforms, because you could take a step and get your foot burned. So it was quite large, quite an amazing walk to go all the way around there. We also saw a thermal plant that was creating energy from the thermal uptakes in the land. So that was our last experience in the Auckland area before we flew back to Melbourne, and then started our second part of our trip, which was driving along the south coast of Australia, and then later going up north to Cairns. And that's it.
Yeah.
Questions? Thoughts?
Final slide.
Final thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend, if you're going to fly that many hours to go tour here, do book a day at your starting point and book a day at your ending point, because otherwise you won't get to see those points. You know, the ways the cruise ship itineraries are, you don't really get to see a lot at the starting and ending city. So I highly recommend doing an extra day. You're paying to go that far anyway.
How many days was the cruise?
So ours was 12 days, I think.
Ours is 14, is the way I figured it.
Yeah. Yep. And it varies. You know, they changed which places we were supposed to stop 5 times between the time I booked it and the time we went, based on, you know, different parameters going on, whatever was going on there with the shipping, you know, congestion. So it varies. You never know exactly what you're going to get until you get there with cruises.
But you have to book way ahead
Yes.
for some of the tours.
Way ahead.